Welcome to Daily Ed Talk, where we engage in provoking discussions, all things education. So this episode I'm very excited about and very connected with because it represents me. I am going to introduce you to 3 additional Black male teachers. And in this, we're going to have this lovely conversation and engage in this interview panel discussion on what it means to be a Black male in education. I don't want to give too much away because it's going to be a great episode that I want you to watch from beginning to end. And I want to give you a little taste though, because it's going to be multiple parts. This first part is going to engage millennial Black male teachers, what they're currently doing in the classroom or outside of the classroom, whether they're administrators, deans, or activists helping to reform education. And then later on for part 2, we're going to tag those Generation X or those baby boomer male teachers, same if they're administration, dean, activists trying to reform education, and get the 2 different perspectives and then together come together and show you their both perspectives on being a Black male in education. I love it. So stay tuned. If you have any comments, questions you want to ask them later on, just drop it in the comment section, and I thoroughly think you're going to enjoy it. All right. Hey, everyone. I am Darren Daly. I have started this podcast, YouTube channel, and today we're having a great conversation about this hot commodity in education, and that is Black male educators. So I have 3 of my, we can say colleagues, new friends here, who are currently teaching in the classroom or have left the classroom and is in an administrative role or an activist role in education. So I'm just going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll first start with Jahad.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jahad Broussard. I am a host of the Reformers Pipeline podcast. In addition to that, I'm from California, but I am now in the Washington, D.C. area. And I'm currently serving as a talent acquisition manager at Management Leadership for Tomorrow.
Great.
Hi, I'm Alexander Bird. I'm a educator in the classroom. I've been teaching for about 7 years. I've been primarily for the last couple of years in DC, and I'm recently just moved back to Jersey and will be a learning specialist at a charter school.
Hey everyone, my name is Bryson McGuire. I currently am residing in Nashville, Tennessee. This is my 6th year education. I recently just now left the classroom, and I'm now a school administrator, dean of students at my school here in Metro Nashville Public Schools, and also just completed my doctorate at Lipscomb University. So thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, Dr. Bryson.
It's still hard getting used to.
Yeah, I understand. So you know how this Versus Challenge has been going around lately, and then the new one that's about to come out, which is kind of exciting. Because me and my friend were talking about it, and we kind of figured Brandy, Monica, that was a good mix, but whatever. So I do this with my kids all the time. Choose either or. Which one would you rather? And that's how we kind of start the class off. So would you rather earn $1 million, so you worked for a while and you earned this $1 million, or you instantly achieved $1 million? Which one would you rather? And anyone can go. Like you woke up, boom, $1 million. Or it took you a while, but now you have $1 million.
I'd say, honestly, present day, I would love that instantaneous, give me that $1 million. But I'll be honest, like, had I gotten this like 10 to 15 years ago, I'd say no, give it to me gradually, because I was not ready. I was not prepared to have that amount of money. But now I'm like, okay, like I know where I need to put the money, and I can handle it. But back then, no, that was not it.
You know, I'm not too sure that at this point I could even handle it. You know, would I love it? Yes, but it's something about, and I was trying to teach this to my brother. You know, my brother is a sophomore in college right now, and he was talking about having a summer job, and I was saying, you know, it's something about having your own money and knowing that you worked for it. So I think that for me, while I would love to wake up and boom, thank God it's there. You know, I think that I may enjoy it a little bit more if I hadn't graduated and had to work for that $1 million. I'll do it. I'll enjoy it during retirement.
And that's what I was thinking. Like it wouldn't probably feel the same if I didn't work for it. But I feel like if I had an instantaneous like $1 million, I could focus on. I wouldn't have to work, and I could focus on what I need to do in order to become a better version of myself. Mm-hmm. So,
okay. So getting in this conversation of, you know, being in education or working in education, I just wanted each of us to just talk about your educational experience, being K to now postgraduate. What was that like? What did you experience? So for me, I was in private school, K to 8th grade. So when I was about 3rd or 4th grade, that's when I realized I was in a private school. I thought everyone went to this smaller school where the classroom size was maybe 15 to 16 max. And the teacher taught multi-grades, or that teacher taught that one grade. And then when I interacted with friends in my neighborhood, that's when I realized, oh, you don't go to the same school as me, of course, but what is your school like? And their school is like, oh, we have 30, 40 maybe kids in a classroom. And sometimes we go to school and we have the resources, sometimes we don't. So that was kind of my experience, K to 8. Then I went to a public high school, all 4 years. And that's because the private institution that was connected to my school, my mother and father honestly thought it was racist, if I wanted to put it like that. It didn't benefit us as Black boys. And I'm the youngest of 3 boys. And she was like, let's not go there. We're just going to enroll in a public school. Was it a shift for me? Yes. Went from a school of a max, maybe 60 kids to 3,000 kids. So 60 kids was in one class for me. So it was kind of like this nerve-wracking thing for me. But I grew and learned a lot during my high school experience. Some of those friends I still have to this day. And then I left there and went to Oakwood University at HBCU in Huntsville, Alabama. Loved my experience at Oakwood, like ride or die. Oakwood, we could say ambassadors, but you know, yes. But ride or die Oakwood, and enjoyed my time there. I did a lot of things at Oakwood that has shaped me to be this educator. So while I was there, I studied English education. And then I also went into kind of like the music department. So I sang there in the Aeolians there and kind of worked my way through Oakwood. I worked because I wanted to work. Student loans, of course, covered it, but I wanted to gain some type of experience. So I worked there in the advancement and development department. So that division works on outside money to get into the school. So they provide scholarships and capital campaigns and all of those things. So I got to meet a lot of donors, big donors from the school, plan events for the school and all of that. And then while I was in Aeolians, I worked under the director there. So I was kind of like his student worker there and kind of gained all of this leadership experience while I was there. So I enjoyed that. Then I immediately graduated and came up to Maryland and went to UMD, University of Maryland, predominantly white institution. Where some of the classes, I was the only Black in the class, or I was the only Black male in the class. So it was kind of this culture shock in a way, where you have to, I was telling Alex, because I met Alex there. Sometimes we're sitting in class and it's like, today, am I going to defend myself or am I going to just deflect? Do I need to engage in this conversation? Because I'm not the voice of every Black person. So what do I do? So I've had all of these experiences through my whole educational career, and I think it's good for the viewers to see this journey and what has made you this educator that you are. So anyone wants to share their experience?
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. Like I said, my name is Jahab Broussard, and while you were even talking about that, I was like, wow, yeah, like my educator experience, like how did I get to where I am today? And I think that that has shaped a lot of the decisions that I made, as well as the decisions that I will continue to make in regards to like advocating for what's best for students as well as educators. And so I was in public school from K through 12. I went to a preschool that was an all Black preschool and very affirming in my Black identity, which is something that I really can't say that I appreciated until present day, because K through 12 experience was I lived in the suburbs. So it was, for the most part, a minority majority community. And so race was something that I was not as aware of as I was when I graduated and went to American University. But throughout my trajectory as a Black student, I think I was kind of trying to face this internal battle of what do I want to be? How do I want to be perceived? And what does that look like? What's my definition of success? And so I'm excited to get into that conversation a little later, but I think that throughout my trajectory as a Black male student, the sports conversation was something that was constantly being thrown at me and not feeling as if I was worthy enough because I did not play sports. So when I shifted and was like, okay, like what's my pathway? What's my lane? And so I found that to be in student government. And that was my thing. Like it was my thing in elementary school, middle school, as well as high school. I just loved it. Like I just loved to kind of be the person that was helping people get what they feel like they deserved. And I, mind you, like in high school, you being a student government president, it really doesn't amount to actually anything in the real world, but like just being a sounding board for students was something that I was extremely passionate about. And so from there, like I said, I went to American University, and how did I get from California to American University is like a good question that I always like to have a conversation about. And I think I was very enamored over this idea of attending a prestigious university. And I think that that's a whole other conversation that we can like get into later as well, as opposed to pursuing a university because of what they could have poured into me. And that was something that I did not truly understand. Being a first generation college student, you're like, oh, the only thing that's put in front of you is go to school. But outside of that, it's like, okay, I got to school, what's next? Okay, now I have all this debt from American University. I'm working my butt off. And like, mind you, the traditional experience of a college student, I can't say that I had. I was working, and mind you, like my parents did the best that they could with the resources that they had to get me to where I was. However, it still included me having to work a job, and it wasn't just one job, it wasn't just two jobs. So, and all the internships that I had, they had to be paid internships because I couldn't afford to do an unpaid internship. So those are things that were constantly in the back of my mind you, like my friends, they're out partying, they're out going to study abroad on various semesters and things of that nature. And those are opportunities that I would say were somewhat stripped away from me. Because I went to this predominantly white institution, and I felt like even though I was a private school, in some ways, shape, or form, you still just feel like you're another number. You're another Black student that's basically meeting a quota, and the amount of investment or lack thereof that goes into those types of students is extremely problematic and very troubling for me. So I say all that to say, after that experience, while I was at American, I was teetering between so many things. I was like, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, as well as an educator. I was very just like, I want to serve people. That's what I'm passionate about. So I majored in legal studies and was double majoring in education as well. And then it just so happened I had to drop that education major to a minor. And so because of that, I was like, you know what, let me pursue teaching by way of Teach for America. Terrible decision. And we can get into that later as well. So from there, after my first year in the Corps, I was troubled with the content and the curriculum that was being pushed by Johns Hopkins, being taught by these university professors that knew nothing about the community that I was serving in and knew nothing about my students. And so I was conflicted with this idea that, oh, okay, I need to go to Hopkins, but all I was yet again trapped in is this idea of this name this name brand, this name recognition university, as opposed to the resources that they were giving me to provide for my students so I can be the best educator for my students. So with that being said, I ended up transferring to Howard University. An amazing experience, but a tumultuous experience at the same time. And I think that I wouldn't trade any of my experiences for the world, but I do think that the Howard curriculum and the people that I met, they were a lot more invested in me, in my educator identity, which is something else that I did not know anything about. And going into the class in my first year, I was very kind of impressionable by this idea of what an educator should be, based off of the school standards, as opposed to being I'm a Black male in the classroom and I am 2% of what an educator, or of all the educators throughout this country. And so like me just being here, me being present in this space is enough, and valuing that. And so trying to shift that narrative of I have to become this, meet these standards, and as opposed to saying like, no, I am the standard. So all that to say, I've been on like this never ending journey to really try to get uplift educator voice, but allow people to see that you have your own educator identity. Find that before you get into the classroom, because you can be impressionable, and people can take opportunities away from you because they don't know, and you don't know who you really are. So all that to say, can't wait to jump into this conversation. Hopefully I didn't go on too long there.
No, you're fine. I just had to type this down on my little thing. I am the standard. Like I just had to, but yeah.
You know, and I didn't know if I was like, I said, God, is this my memoir? You know, he just keeps talking and talking. I was like, oh my God, you know, I feel like I connected so highly. So I'm from a small town, Danville, Kentucky. You can probably hear it in my voice. I tell everyone it keeps me humble. And so from a small town, it's 2 high schools, but we're broken into city schools and into county schools. I went to city schools. Predominantly all the Black students went to the city schools. And I went through this school, preschool, all the way up until 12th grade. And it was an amazing experience, you know, to be with a community that I knew, particularly a Black community in my small town. They were all very, very close. But I did live in this idea of, how do I continue to uplift myself? What do I want to do? You know, I felt like constantly I had to prove myself. You know, everyone knew my family, you know, it was a well-off family, you know, and so every time I was looked at as, okay, what's Bryson going to do next? You know, and so when you were talking about high school, I played, you know, varsity track and played varsity soccer. I was student president, Student Government Association president, you know, but that still was not enough for me. You know, I started preaching when I was 16 years old. So all of this stuff, you know, I just felt like I had to prove something, you know, and I was always looked at as a golden child, but deep down inside, I'm like, Lord, I don't know what I want to do, you know, and I don't know who I want to be. And I think that I constantly was pursuing different things as a means to be able to fulfill others' dreams and what they expected of me, rather than to fulfill what I expected for myself. So I went to the University of Louisville in 2011. I went in as a biology major because I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and I used that word thought strategically. I went into biology class, and it was 201, and I quickly learned that is not what I want to do. So I knew that I loved the law and I love student government. You all can hear my new baby screaming too. He's downstairs. But I was sitting there and I was like, you know, I know I love the law. Maybe I'll go into political science. I majored in political science at the University of Louisville. But again, that still was not enough for me. And I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher, but I was always concerned about the financial aspects of being a teacher. I was like, you know, how am I going to obtain this lifestyle, you know, that I've created for myself and that my parents have continuously supported? You know, what am I going to do? And I'm a spirit-filled individual. You know, I'm a believer, and you know, I was a big believer of, you know, if this is what the Lord would have for me to do as an educator, I know that He would make ways for me to be able to be sustained. And surely, to God, He has. You know, that next year I went to University of Kentucky, got my master's in education, initial teacher certification. I taught 2 years of high school in Kentucky. In 2018, I wanted to pursue my doctoral degree. So I moved up here to Nashville, taught 2 years of middle school. And I'm just so grateful for my educational journey. And we were talking about Blackness, and this idea of Blackness. excuse me, that dog will scream and cry all day long. But again, we're talking about this idea of Blackness. You know, when we're going into UK, when I was at U of L, I was so grateful for my fraternity brothers. I pledged Alpha at the University of Louisville. Oh, are you a brother of Alpha? Oh my God, brother. Okay. So yes, I pledged Alpha, Fall 13, Alpha Pi chapter, 37th House of Alpha.
I'm 415 too.
Fall 13. Oh my God. So yeah. Oh my God. Straight Club, Best Club, Fall 13.
Yo, but straight to yo.
Oh my
That's crazy. Yo.
So yeah. I love Alpha. Thank God for Alpha. And, you know, I really start to find, I went to PWI, again, University of Louisville, University of Kentucky, and Lipscomb. So, Jahada, speaking of the Black experience, you know, from going to Howard, you know, I never had that. And so I thank God for Alpha that it exposed me to this idea of Blackness at my school where I was currently at the University of Louisville. And I continue to develop this idea of Blackness even after I left Kentucky and began to work for Teach for America at Summer Institute. So again, it's a wonderful thing. I'm so grateful for my experience now, going out of the classroom, spending those 5 years there, and now in administration, and just seeing how those individuals in my small community had continuously poured into me to make sure that I could return the favor one day. And I think that that's why I pursued my doctorate, you know, in honor of those many men and women. I had about 10 grandmothers, 10 grandfathers, 5 aunties, you know, 15 uncles from my small community of Danville. And I'm so grateful for the work that they put in for me. And I'd be remiss if I did not return that favor back to them. And so that's why I'm in education. I desire to give all those nuggets of wisdom to my children that was given to me as a child and through my educational attainment. And so I'm glad to be here, and great to meet you all and to get into this conversation. And I need to go unmute my dog too, so I'll be right back.
So I guess for me, just thinking about just everything, schooling for me was a struggle. So I grew up in a neighborhood, a small neighborhood in or town in New Jersey. So in the 70s or 60s, there were a lot of like riots. So like all of that, like white flight and everything, changed the neighborhood that I grew up in. So it was like predominantly white before, very affluent, but then everything kind of transformed. So my schooling experience, I struggled. I went to public school and I almost got left back. I almost didn't graduate high school. But my mom, who was the first, she's from Haiti, was always just pushing and pushing and pushing, saying like go to school, go to school, go to school, go to school. And actually my senior year of high school, applying, a lot of my friends were like applying and going to college or attempting to go to college. And I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I ended up going to, she convinced me to go to community college. I enjoyed it so much that I was like, okay, community college isn't enough. Let me go to 4-year. So got my associates, got my bachelor's at King University in New Jersey. Ended up pledging Alpha and had a really good experience. I have so many pro fights and fraternity brothers that like just showed me the light in a sense, pushed me. So the reason I actually went to graduate school and the University of Maryland was because of one of my pro fights. He was in Loyola in Chicago. And before that, I didn't think grad school was a possibility for me. And then also getting into education, I felt like the only thing that I could do was teach, because everybody that I came across was either a teacher or educator. So that's kind of how I navigated into education. And that's how I got into education.
You know, that's good. It's just this common thread of we can see how education, as Jahab was saying, and Bryson, and how it has kind of shaped who we become. We all didn't probably say, I'm going to be an educator. We didn't wake up like, this is my career path on career day in elementary school. You didn't come to school dressed as a teacher. We probably were dressed as doctors or lawyers or, like Jahab was saying, a basketball player at some point, because that's what was pushed on us. So my next question is, so you kind of touched on it individually, but what actually pushed you in that direction to pursue a degree in education? Because I went into Oakwood as a dual major. While I was applying, I applied as a public relations person. And it's crazy to say, but I wanted to be the Samantha on Sex and the City. I wanted to represent, I wanted to represent celebrities, make these events for these people and create spaces for everyone to be and enjoy, but also represent celebrities and make people bigger than who they thought they could be. That's what I was going to do. So I went in public relations, minor in business. Then my mother, she honestly was like, I need you to get a job that you're going to have a career when you get out. So I was like, I want to go into education. That's the only thing I can see myself doing. Doctor and all of that, that's too much schooling, even though now I'm trying to pursue a doctor. But it's just a lot of schooling, and I'm not with the blood and all of that. So I was like, education has to be it. I loved English in school, so let me pursue this education degree. And those professors there kind of have shaped and molded me to be this educator and to love it. And like you're saying, at an HBCU, you come up with all of these issues. Like there's always some story at an HBCU that you've gone through. But the professors are pouring into you. And sometimes you're sitting there like, dang, I do want to cry right now, but I'm not going to cry. And that's just, they're speaking life into you. So that's really pushed me into this education degree or this career. So what pushed you further into this whole educational degree or journey?
You know,